call a Board of Education meeting, teaching and learning, Tuesday, August 8th, 2017 at 6:31.
Present, we have Mark and Larry. Absent is Evelyn. No guests. All right. First item on the agenda, we're going to have to revise the 2017-18 calendar.
Okay.
The two highlighted dates there you see in October.
Yes.
Our current schedule has our SIP day on the 18th. We're going to need to move that to the 25th because that's going to be our fall testing. We didn't have the PSAT dates when we accepted this calendar.
Okay.
Okay, so it's just moving that down. That's going to be our PSAT and NMSQT testing. Okay. It's pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
No real discussion on that one.
Okay.
All right. Okay. Second item I want to jump into is our academic achievement report. So,
Turn the light off with that.
I'm actually going to pull the screen, and that should help take the glare off for you.
Okay.
Is that better?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank
Let's
you.
get super dark. All right. So what I have here is a snippet of the academic achievement report that is part of Phil's meetings. So if you have the opportunity to meet with him, I think he's still working on scheduling that with a couple of you, right?
Right.
I think you guys have had yours yet. So part of this is in that presentation, but I thought it'd be prudent to kind of go over it now, you know, as we're
Okay.
starting our academic year and kind of reflect on where we were and where we're going. All right. So the first thing is our PSAT, SAT results. Okay, and what we're going to be looking at is comparing fall to spring of the same students.
Okay.
Okay. So one thing to keep in mind is we're looking at this data. This is really baseline data because we've never used these tests before. Okay. Now, once we have the October tests, so what we're going to be taking on the 25th, that data is going to come out in December.
Okay.
Now we'll be able to take the kids who were freshmen last year, who are now sophomores, and look at their growth over time.
Oh, okay.
Okay, same thing with sophomores to juniors, juniors to seniors. Well, seniors don't have a test, but so we're going to be looking at that cohort. All right.
Okay.
So when you look at it, it's really tempting to compare one class to the next class, but you're talking two different groups of kids.
To the right.
Okay. All right. So with that being said, what we're looking at here is PSAT 8-9. So this is freshmen. Freshmen that took the test in the fall, and they take the same type of test in the spring.
Okay.
Okay. We're looking for a benchmark of 860. So what does that mean? The benchmark, if a student earns an overall score of an 860, they have a 75% chance of getting a C or better in a college course.
Okay.
So we're doing some predicting, much like we did with the ACT.
Okay.
College Board has the same thing for the SAT suite.
Okay.
Okay. So this is the overall mean score. So right now as a district, in the spring, we averaged an 835.
And 860 is the C in college,
Mhm.
college class.
Correct. Okay. Again, these are freshmen. Still a lot of room to grow, right?
Right.
Okay. The other thing we have to keep in mind, while we're seeing some growth between 18 in the fall, we got an 818, in the spring we got an 835. Here's kind of the other parameter we have to remember. At any point in time during the year when a student takes a test,
Mhm.
they can score either 20 points higher or 20 points lower than their previous test.
Mm. Okay.
So
Okay.
let me give you an example. Let's just do some simple math. Let's say I scored 1,000 in the fall, in October, and I took the test again in November. I potentially could get a 980, or I could get 1,020.
Oh.
Doesn't
Okay.
mean I'm doing poorly or better. It's just there's a range that I fall in terms of my skill. Maybe some of the test questions were easier the second time. Maybe they were harder.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
So at any point in time in a given year, you can see a 40-point swing, 20 points higher or 20 points lower than this.
If I'm reading that correctly, in the spring, every class improved.
Yes.
Is that right? Okay.
Well,
Great.
but keeping in mind that there's a 20-point upswing or a 20-point downswing. So yes, while the growth is good, and we want to celebrate that, we also have to remember that at any given point we've got that movement. So that's where I'm saying we have to be careful that this is just preliminary baseline data.
Okay.
The real growth is going to become, how do these freshmen do now as sophomores?
Okay.
Because they're taking different higher level classes, exposed to deeper content. They're taking it to the next level. That's where we're really going to start looking for that growth over time. This is great that we're getting positive, that we're not getting too much negative, but we also have to figure we've got that, again, that 20-point swing front to back.
Now, you want them to be at an 860 by the time they were juniors or
No,
seniors?
this is freshmen,
Right.
the freshman benchmark. It goes up as they get older, and I'm going to show you that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Does that make sense, though?
Yes.
Okay. So, the PSAT is made up of two different tests. Evidence-based reading and writing. So in this portion of the test, they're doing some reading, they're doing some writing analysis. Okay. The reading portion is where we're focusing on our Common Core reading standards, that 1, 7, and 8. Right?
Okay.
That we've been talking about. Almost 50% of the reading test are Common Core standards 1, 7, and 8. What we're focusing on with our Type 2 assessments,
Okay.
with our teachers. The other portion of the test, the writing test, kids get asked questions like, which statement is grammatically correct? Or which statement, if the author added it to this passage, would make the most sense? That's kind of the writing. It's more the grammar side. This portion of the test, when we're talking about the SAT, is worth 800 points. Okay, and the freshman, it just escaped me what the total is. Let me grab that really quick. The ERW in the freshman, it is $720. So the highest amount of points they can score here is 720 as a freshman.
Okay.
Okay. The benchmark is 410. Again, that benchmark saying if they hit a 410 as a freshman, they're on track to get a C or better in our college course.
Okay.
So you can see as a district, we're on track. 2 of our schools are on track. 2 of our schools, we still have some work to do. But for a first-time effort on a test these kids have never seen before, pretty good. Goal is to give them more practice and embed these skills in our content areas. Math, again, that portion of the test is also out of 720, but notice the benchmark is higher. Math is always a higher benchmark than English.
Okay.
So that benchmark is a 450. None of our schools have hit the math benchmark.
Okay.
And part of that is the way that the students are tested in math on the SAT is completely different than how we test normally in our courses. And that's something that we're changing to as we move to integrated math. The types of problems they're going to be seeing will be reflective of the SAT.
Okay.
The reality is the math test is also a reading test. It's more word problems. It's more extra information that the students have to tease out. It's not just simple solve for X anymore.
Okay.
So we know we have some room to grow there. Now let's take a look at the sophomores. So the sophomores, their benchmark is a 910 overall. So now you're going to see that number go up.
Okay.
Okay? It was 860 for freshmen. Now we're looking at a 910. Across the board, we've got 2 of our schools are just there. But again, it's a 20-point swing on any given day. That we could be higher or lower. When we look at evidence-based reading and writing, those benchmarks also go up. So now we're at a 430 instead of a 410, and a 480 instead of a 450. we are almost hitting the benchmark in all 4 schools and as a district in reading. And again, math, we know we have some work to do across the board.
We're going to get copies of all this?
Absolutely.
Too? Thanks.
Yep. Okay. If we look at, let me back up for 1 second before we go into our juniors. So, in the late winter, when we look at this data again, when we pull up the sophomores and we look at PSAT 10, what I'm going to have this compared to is their freshman score. Okay? So between our freshman score and our sophomore score, we're looking for a 50-point gain. So that's where we're going to be able to measure the growth. Right now, you can't really measure growth.
Okay.
So if we go now, these are our juniors. Their overall benchmark, so SAT, as a junior, they should be getting a 970. Now, one of the things when ISB rolls out their report card this fall, their benchmark is actually a 1010. What they're doing, SAT's benchmark is meant to be a senior benchmark, not a junior benchmark. Okay, so that's one thing we have to keep in mind. They're using as if the student took it as a senior. Okay. The College Board is saying as an 11th grader, they should be at a 970. And again, we're seeing positive growth. We've got 2 of our schools that are hitting the 970, 2 that, we're knocking on the door.
So what are we, 952 as a district,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
That's not bad.
It's not bad. Again,
about 18 points, but again, it's the 20 points now.
Yes, the 20-point swing, and again, these are brand new tests for all of our kids
Sure.
that they've never taken before. When we look at our reading, the benchmark is a 460. We've got almost all of our schools hitting our reading benchmark. So one of the positive things that we can take away from this, we've really put a significant emphasis on Common Core reading, on those 3 standards that make up 50% of that exam. And we're holding teachers accountable in their Type 2 assessments and their evaluation on those 3 standards. Everyone's effort is focused on those 3 things, and we're seeing the results that goes along with that. Math, again, 510 for the benchmark, and they're sort of, at one of our schools, but again, we know we have some work to do there. One thing, though, that I do want to point out, if we look at fall to spring, so this is where a SAT says if I'm a junior and I take the PSAT in the fall, I'm looking for a 40-point gain to my SAT in the spring. So if we kind of do the math really quickly here, as a district, we've had a 47-point gain. Bremen's had 43. Tinley has 45. Hillcrest has 49. And I'm sorry, I'm using the wrong thing. Let me go back, because that didn't make any sense. Here we go, that's math. Like, that doesn't add up. 47, what are you talking about? Here we go. 47, 43, 45, 49, 51. All 4 of our schools, and as a district, we've hit the expected gains in our juniors.
Wow.
As an average. So that's something we want to celebrate.
Mm-hmm.
We may not necessarily be hitting the overall benchmark, but we're hitting the expected growth in our junior year.
Good.
One thing to celebrate. Okay. Next year, what we want to look for is our current juniors. We're going to take their sophomore test, compare it to their fall junior test, and we're looking for 60 points of growth. Okay, so that's something we'll talk about probably in January.
Okay.
All right. So questions about PSAT, SAT?
I'm interested for the next round.
Yeah.
Testing. That'll be the tell-all.
Yes.
Not tell-all, but it'll give us a better
Indication of where we are. And again, our teachers have been exposed now. Our students have been exposed.
Exactly. Yeah.
We have we've put some things in place where we've got our test prep programs for our juniors that we're going to continue. So not only are we doing test prep within our courses, but we have after school or during the day test prep specifically for our students. We're really targeting the students that aren't at the benchmark because again, we want to help them achieve that benchmark. We're also encouraging students to use Khan Academy, which if I don't know if you're aware of Khan Academy.
I'm not.
So the College Board has paired up with Khan Academy, and they've put out free lessons for anyone to access.
Okay.
Okay. So what we can do with the or actually the kids can do, they can take the results, upload it to Khan Academy, and it will produce a prescriptive program
Really?
for them specific to their deficient areas.
They all need to do it.
Absolutely.
Oh my gosh, that's wonderful.
Yes.
Yeah.
So we need to kind of promote that a little bit more,
Yeah.
to the point where a student can get a text message, a daily question sent to their phone. Yeah, they can do any practice test either by pencil or online, and
That's good.
those scores will continue to be imported, and they can continue to focus on their deficient areas.
Now, are these related to the teachers? This information about how the kids are doing?
Related, how, like, are they aware?
Yes.
So one of the things that we're working on, and I talked with the College Board about, is having teachers get access to the results
Yes.
of the tests. We're going to set it up so they get summary results right now. Because of HIPAA and FERPA, we can't give them access to all kids.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to work on a solution where they can only see their students in their class. But the goal is, here, let me actually show you this because this is pretty interesting. My goal is to have every teacher sign up with a College Board account. Oh, hold on a second. I'm going to jump to the SAT really quick.
Okay.
What I'm doing is I'm actually going into the test questions.
Mm-hmm.
So many of the tests that the College Board gives are called disclosed, which means that the students actually get the tests back. Okay, and we actually have access to the original test questions. Okay. So what we're working towards is when teachers have access to the summary data, we can take a look at by department, by specific course, by specific standard, and say, okay, as a group, as a school, as a department, 50% of the students got this question wrong when 80% of the country got it correct. Well, let's look at why. And as soon as it pops up, I'm going to show this to you. Takes a while.
Because if the growth is happening, then our teachers should be some kind of encouraged by that themselves and help them to keep their job or give them more job security.
Well, in what we're trying to promote is if we're implementing our type 2s and we're looking at our data and we're helping teachers grow in their reading skills in our content areas, that's going to translate into their high stakes tests, which translates into opening doors for college and careers. Because again, the higher their score, the more avenues it opens for them. Okay. So what we're looking at here, this is actually the results of our April 5th testing. Okay. This is called an item analysis. So literally, this is question number 1 on the reading test. This is what the correct answer is, C. As a district, 92% of our students got that question correct, as well as 92% of all the students in the state of Illinois that took that test, as well as 92% of every student in the country that took that test.
Wow.
Okay. Now, this happens to be an easy question. So, great, we're in line with the state. Let's take a look at one that maybe we're not. So, College Board ranks the difficulty of the question, so we can do a comparison. Here, let's just take a look at number 6. 54% of our students, it's a medium question, 54% of our kids got it correct, while 61% of the state got it correct. So not a huge difference, but why aren't we achieving at or above the state level?
Right.
Okay. The other thing this tells me right off the bat, so if A was the correct choice, our students are choosing B more frequently than C or D, Fortunately, none of our kids left that question blank. Okay? So that gives me some information, especially if the majority of our kids are choosing one answer over another.
Yeah, that's helpful.
Well, not only that, class, let's take a look at that test question. This is the actual question on the test.
Wow.
Because it's disclosed, they've opened that up for us to review. So now, I've got a couple of things I can do. I can print this out if I wanted to. I can just look at it as a whole class. I could make a PDF of it and send it to all my kids' iPads, and we can do an in-depth discussion about it. And really figure out, okay, why did all of you choose B? What's in this question that was distracting to you when the choice was A?
Wow.
So that's our goal kind of moving forward. We want to get teachers in here to be able to access those test questions, especially on those ones. If they're easy and we're getting them wrong, why are we getting them wrong? And work towards making sure that we're answering those mediums and even tackling those difficult questions. Another thing, really quick, I'll just jump over to our math test. So the math test is actually made up of two portions, calculator and no calculator. So in ACT, they were used to using the calculator all the time. Now in some portions that they can't. In addition, there's a chunk of both tests where it's free response. So there's no choices for you. You actually have to do the math and bubble in your answer, be it a decimal, a fraction. There's nothing for you to pick from. Okay? So one of the things we found, I'm going to scroll down to the end here. You can actually see the free response. See, there's no letters, it's numbers. The answer was 9 or 6, 7, 10, right? You see that?
Right.
25% of our kids left it blank. 25%, 28%, 32% of our students are leaving those questions blank. So that's a question for us. Why are you leaving it blank? Did you do the math and didn't know how to bubble in? Or let's get after it and see, yes, these were difficult questions, but let's see that, are we at least attempting? So that gives us some information too. We can also see that in the reading side. If students are omitting questions, chances are they running out of time?
Was that like 18 and 19 in the state?
Yeah, these are really difficult. So like this one, only 24% of the state got this question correct. 14% of our kids, 20% across the nation. These are really hard questions. So teachers can get a lot of information just off that item analysis. So that's what we're working on moving forward with them. But we've been talking, I know Tom O'Shea has talked about it with the English department, as well as the other supervisors talking with their teachers, the positive growth, especially that we've seen in reading, because it's been such a heavy focus across the district that you're seeing the gains. We're teaching 178. Let's continue to do that. Let's continue to analyze our tests. Let's make sure that we're weaving those skills into our courses because we're seeing the results. We want to keep that going. Okay. Any questions about that?
No.
Okay. No problem. So our seal of biliteracy, we're really proud of this academic achievement. Okay. Just to remind you of what this is. So this was introduced by the ISB in 2014-15. We put a team together to research the program and figure out how we were going to implement this. Okay. And there's two levels of achievement. It's the seal of biliteracy and the seal of commendation. And it's determined on various academic measures. So if I achieve a 5 on my AP language exam, I automatically get the seal of biliteracy. That means I've demonstrated a high level of proficiency in a foreign language. I can speak it, write it, listen. I can also take the AAPL and or other, or the ACT and hit a certain benchmark. So what's the difference between the two? A seal of biliteracy is awarded to graduates who demonstrate a high level of proficiency in reading, writing, speaking in 2 or more languages. So not only do they demonstrate proficiency in English, they have to demonstrate proficiency, and it could be in Spanish, French, German, Arabic, Gujarati, Portuguese, whatever, Russian, doesn't matter. And vice versa. If a student's native language is Spanish, they show Spanish proficiency and English proficiency. It works both ways. A state commendation recognizes students who demonstrate proficiency towards full biliteracy in English or Spanish or another language. Okay, so they're almost there. A lot of times our juniors will end up with a commendation and our seniors will get a seal of biliteracy. Not always, but that's generally how that works. So here's when we actually Roll this out in 2015-16. We had, as a district, only 4 students achieve the seal of biliteracy. This last year set of graduates, we had 35.
Wow.
And those were earned in English, Spanish, French, German, and Arabic.
That's growth. That's good.
Absolutely. That is huge. Our state commendations went from 13 in 15-16 to 11. So we had more students achieve the seal of biliteracy, which again opens a lot of doors for our students because it says to colleges, to potential employers, I can speak 2 languages or more.
Right. Right.
So we're really proud of those. And we're going to continue to grow. Now that we have a better understanding of the process, we have some key indicators that we can look for right away. So Maureen will automatically pull all the juniors that scored a 5 on their language exams and make sure that they apply for the seal of biliteracy.
Okay.
And then we can target. Right now, according to Power School, we have about 1,000 students that are bilingual.
Right.
Those are potential students to earn seals.
Wow. Okay.
It's amazing. All right. Next data I want to go over is MAP. So MAP stands for Measures of Academic Progress. Okay, it's a nationally normed test, and basically it adapts to a student's academic level. So it's not a paper pencil test, it's actually a computer generated test. Depending upon how you answer, it will actually level up. So it'll give you a harder question and a harder question until you tap out. And then it'll come back down. And so basically it levels up and down until it finds basically where your academic level is. Okay. Kind of that sweet spot. Not too hard, not too easy, but right where you are. Students test in reading, language usage, and math. And we use this for 2 reasons. One, our 8th graders take this test and we use it for placement as freshmen. Okay. And that's the only time that we use that data. All of our special ed students are tested 3 times a year, 9th through 12th grade. And that data is used to write their IEP goals for them to measure improvement in English and math. Okay. What we're going to look at is the first usage of how we're using that data to place students. Okay, so our students, in essence, are we getting stronger students coming in? Are we getting weaker students? Or are we still kind of about the same? Does that make sense?
So we don't do anything with MAP once they're done as a freshman?
Unless you're a special ed student.
Yeah.
Correct.
And it's 3 times a year. Okay.
Because the majority of students then are now going into the SAT suite.
Gotcha.
Yep. All right. So these results are for students that fall in the range of 204 and below. Any student that scores within this range, we place them in English Skills Extended. This means that they're reading significantly below grade level, sometimes 2, 3, or more years below grade level. This is the percentage of students from each of our schools that are being placed in those classes. Let me just...
So as a district, we got about 13%.
13%, just under 13%. So how many sections is that actually talking? Is that a lot of kids? Is that a little bit of kids? You know, let me kind of put that into perspective for you. We've been at, as a district, about 7 sections of English Skills Extended.
Okay.
And that fluctuates. We've been at 6.5, but 7 sections for the last 3 years. Okay. One thing to keep in mind with this class in particular, many of our special ed students go in this class, so we're trying to move them out of self-contained and put them in a gen ed setting. And also many of our English learners sometimes end up here because they just don't have the language proficiency. And that prevents them from being on grade level. Okay, so just kind of have to keep that in mind. So we've been at about 7 sections across the district with English skills. The next range, so if I score between a 205 and a 213, that puts me into Introduction to English Extended. So I've made the core curriculum, but I'm struggling in some of my skills. So we want to support them with a little bit of extra time, okay? Extra reinforcement. And we'll see that ebbs and flows a little bit. We're actually down in terms of our extended classes. So in 2015, 2016, we actually had 12 sections of Introduction to English Extended. This year, we're only running 9. So what does that tell you? Where are the rest of the kids?
Yeah.
If we had 12 sections and now we only have 9,
Right.
what does that tell you about our students?
They've gotten better.
They've gotten better.
Right.
Exactly. They're actually at grade level or above. They're
Right.
going into our honors track. So this is good that we're
Okay.
actually seeing a decline in this score range, because that means our students are coming in a little bit stronger. And you can see that here. These scores, so if I have a score between a 214 and a 227, I'm actually in Introduction to English, I'm right where I should be.
Okay.
Okay? I'm in the core curriculum. I'm in a good spot. As a district, 41% of our students are where they should be. Again, not saying that these students aren't, because students in Introduction to English Extended just need a little extra time. So we have another 18% that are almost there.
Right.
Okay?
Yeah.
41% of our students are where they should be. This is nice as a district. So students scoring in 228 and above are actually in our honors program. So you can see the percentage of our students going into the honors track has actually grown.
Wow.
And if we look at all of our average scores across the district, you can see Tinley's been about the same. They've been at 219. We see an uptick in Bremen. We see Hillcrest ebbs and flows a little bit, but they're right around 215. Oak Forest increased a little bit, but as a district, we're hovering around 218, 219 as an average reading score. And then this is comparing, so if we take each student's, we take our average as a district, these students are in English skills, they're below grade level. These students are in Introduction to Extended, a little bit of extra time. These students are on grade level, and these students are in our honors track. Okay. So on the surface, it looks like, and again, we've done a lot of work with our feeder schools, articulation, talking about curriculum, making sure that they understand the transition to high school. And we're seeing, and they're doing some nice things at in their elementary schools too. They're making significant changes, and we're starting to see that growth in our students. Mm-hmm.
It's really where it has to happen.
Yeah, absolutely, both places.
Both places, but those feeder schools.
They're crucial, and our partnership is crucial too.
Yeah, because if they're reading at grade level when they come here, then chances are,
Right, and the reality is we know many of our students are not.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to support our feeder schools the best that we can, and then we'll take the students where they left off and try to grow them.
Mm-hmm.
Did anyone get decision yet?
Prairie Hills.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Yes, I'm really excited once they kind of get that up and running to partner with Prairie Hills and really do some work there. Yeah, hopefully we can help support each other.
Because that's Hillcrest, right?
Mm-hmm. Most of it. Although they also feed into Bremen and Tinley. But the majority of the students go to Hillcrest.
Okay.
Yep.
Great.
When we take a look at math, so again, same kind of concept. The bands are about the same. This particular score range is, so if I'm 209 or below, I'm actually going into pre-algebra. So just to give you some history, in 2015-16, we had 7 sections of pre-algebra. This year we have 6. And that seems to be about the sweet spot. Because again, the other thing with pre-algebra, we have special ed students that are coming out of the self-contained and are going into this core class, which is good. We want them in the core curriculum. And then just some of our struggling math students just end up there. We also have a smaller class size. I forgot to mention that too. In the English Skills Extended, it's a smaller class size. Same with the pre-algebra to really help those students as much as possible. Scores between 210 and 225 put me in Algebra 1 Extended. Again, just like on the English side, it's a little more time to try to shore up those skills. I'm slightly below grade level. but we're seeing a dip in those. In 2015-16, we ran 17 sections. This year, we're down to 15.
Wow, okay.
So we're seeing some positive movement. That tells me then more students are where they need to be at Algebra 1 or honors. So these are the percentage of students in our regular Algebra 1 class. And we're seeing a growth. Tinley down slightly, but that only tells me that more students are in honors. So we don't necessarily look at that dip as something negative, but otherwise we're seeing nice positive movement upward. And then these are the percentage of students in our honors program. Our overall averages, we're seeing some growth at Bremen, Tinley, a little bit at Hillcrest, Oak Forest, and overall as a district, we're hovering around 222 as an average score in math. So if we look at our bands, again, left to right, pre-algebra, Algebra 1 extended, Algebra 1, honors Algebra 1. We're seeing growth in kids that are actually on track, which is a plus. Questions about that? Okay. Let's jump into advanced placement, something that we're proud of here as a district. So this is our trend data. I've started to lop off older years because then it gets too hard to read the graph. So we're looking at the last 7 years of data.
Okay.
This past spring, we had, our students took 1,617 tests as a district. Let me put that into perspective for you. In 2008, when I came on board with Bill and we started having conversations about advanced placement, and we know that exposure to AP is a good thing for kids. And prior to he and I coming on board, usually only the top students took AP classes.
Right.
Okay. So in 2008, our students only took 445 tests.
Okay.
In almost
So you,
9-10 years, we've gone up 260% in the number of testers. When we take a look at the number of students, so these are the number of students, not the students enrolled in the class, because not every student in class is going to take the test.
right.
And again, we do it on a case-by-case basis. Some students, we know it's a stretch for them. We don't want them to necessarily spend the $93 to test if we know they're going to get a 1.
Right.
And a 1 doesn't give them college credit. They need a 3, 4, or 5 to get college credit.
Right.
So some of the students we know just being in the class alone is good exposure. So in 2017, this past spring, those 1,617 tests were taken by 918 students. So just under 1,000 students took AP tests. In 2008, again going back to that 448 tests, we only had 292 students take tests. Again, 260% increase in involvement in AP.
It's fantastic.
Huge.
Yeah.
Huge. And we continue to work at that.
That's
Again,
great.
we don't want to put barriers there. If a student wants to take AP and they want to have that challenge, we're of the mindset, have the challenge. Be exposed. We know, research shows, if they're at least in the class, they have a better chance of being successful in college. If they're in the class and take the test, that percentage goes up. If they take the test and pass it, it goes up again.
You know, I believe it because, you know, Sterling took those AP courses and stuff here. He scored well, but he still went on to college and still scored well.
Yep. Yeah.
He said, Dad, I know most of the stuff they're teaching.
Good.
You know?
That's great. And having that experience and being in a college-like setting, the more we can expose the students to that, the more successful they are going to be. When we look at our passing tests, so of the 1,617 tests that we took, 707 were passing scores of 3, 4, or 5. So again, 3 is passing.
Right.
Okay. So when we look at the percentage, so what does that equate to? Well, that's 44% of our students' exams were passed. In 2008, when we only had less than 300 students pass, the pass rate was 45%.
Wow.
We're achieving, again, we've got still some work to do,
Right.
but we're achieving just about at the same rate as when we had 260% less students.
Exactly.
It's amazing. more AP opportunities than what we've had in 2008. And our teachers are continuing to collaborate, understand the test, expose the students to the skills that they need so that they can be successful on those exams. So we're really proud of that. And you can see even across the board at our schools, our pass rates are going up.
Will the state ever recognize these type of achievements rather than saying that, well, you guys are not making it, you know?
Yes, and that's something that's coming out with the new report card. So not only is it the percentage of students college ready in terms of SAT, they're now looking at AP scores, participation, pass rates. They're looking at our students in dual credit. Mm-hmm. We have 165, I think is the number, 165 courses district-wide that are dual credit aligned with Moraine Valley and South Suburban College. Students get an A or B in those courses, they get a free class at South Sub. If they get an A or B in that class, they get another free class.
Wow.
And depending upon the types of courses our students are taking, they can walk away with some upwards of almost 16 credit hours, college credit hours, while they're sitting in high school.
That's a semester.
Yeah. Yep. So that's one of the figures I'm working on gathering for you, is looking at how many of our students have actually earned the dual credit, translating that to dollars saved. So you can see that, because we are doing a lot of work with dual credit as well.
Right.
Mm-hmm. When we look at our participation by demographics, this is something we're also making sure that we're aware of and monitoring, is, are we exposing all of our students appropriately, proportionally to our demographics?
Mm-hmm.
You know, in making sure that we're encouraging and supporting our students. So when we look at our African American students as a district, they took 249 of those 1,600 tests. Hispanic students, 405 tests. And you can see, let me go back. We have some upticks now. Hillcrest, we've got more AP students than we've had in the past, which is great. We're developing more AP programs for them so they don't have to travel to the other buildings. And that's taken some time to develop. In the past, they used to have to go to Bremen or Hillcrest or Oak Forest to take AP.
Right.
We're continuing to build the program so those students don't have to leave. Okay. When we look at our Hispanic students, our Hispanic population is growing. And we have more students taking AP tests. And one thing we want to kind of dive into a little bit more is how come our participation from our white students is dropping. You know, we had less students test this year than we did last year, and that's something I'm going to work with my APs for teaching and learning, is let's kind of get after why. Not just the white students, but all of our students. Why did our number decrease? Is it financial? Did the teachers feel that the students weren't ready? What is preventing them so we can help support them? We certainly don't want finance to be a reason why they don't test. And so one of the things that I wrote in this year through Title I is paying for all of the student portions of their AP exam. So that wasn't a factor for them. But I want to make sure that our students are taking advantage of that.
Okay.
When we look at our past exams, so this is the percentage of, that car pass, that's really loud. When we look at the percentage of the exams taken that were passed, this is of our African American students. We're ebbing and flowing, you know, we're kind of right around 20%. And that varies from building to building. Hispanic pass rate is going up. Part of that, this is the introduction of AP Spanish language and literature. So students that are native Spanish speakers, we're really developing that skill set again, that it helps them because the test is in Spanish. So we're seeing, I know the pass rate at Bremen for AP language was 88%. Huge, huge. And our white student pass rate is right around 52% as a district. So again, we're continuing to have conversations. We're looking at the data. We're still trying to drill down how we can support all of our students. Again, we're not hanging up on making sure that all of our kids pass their test. That's not our goal. Our goal is exposure, supporting teachers, and opening doors. You know. Another thing that we're proud of is AP Scholars. So the College Board started this AP Scholar program. And so this is another way for us to track and celebrate the students that are in our AP program. So a student that earns an AP Scholar, if they receive a score of 3 or higher on 3 or more AP exams, they get the distinction of AP Scholar. An AP Scholar with honors means my average score is a 3.25 on 4 or more exams. AP Scholar with distinction is an average of 3.5 on 5 or more exams. And then a National AP Scholar is at least a 4 on 8 or more of these exams. I mean, 8 AP exams, that's
a lot.
That's a huge accomplishment, especially when the majority of the tests are happening junior, senior year. We only have 1 AP course as a freshman. We have 2 as a sophomore, and then they start adding on junior and senior year. So you think about it, sometimes these seniors, all they're taking are AP classes. And so to get a 4 or more on all those, and it's cumulative. So when they start as a freshman, if I got a 3 or higher on my AP Geography, I'm starting to make my way up through these scholar programs. Okay. So these are our district scholars. Going back to 2011, we only had 31 AP Scholars. This year we have 91.
Okay.
8 scholars with honors, we're up to 23. Scholars with distinction, again, this is a 3.5 or higher, went from 8 in 2011 to 32. And this year we have 5 National AP Scholars that they got a 4 on 8 or more exams.
Smarties.
Yeah. But what's really cool, I don't know if you saw that article in the Southtown about Lincoln Way and their AP program.
No, I didn't see
And the
it.
numbers there, they were celebrating how they had more students involved in AP and their pass rate, and it was a really nice article. But so I did some digging, and I called over there and said, okay, well, how many students are actually involved in your AP program? And as a district, they only have about 29%, 28% of their entire student population in AP. What percentage of our kids do you think are enrolled in AP?
Well, we do a good job at pushing it, so I think it's going to be higher.
40?
No, not that high.
I was going to say 38.
Yeah, we're about 25, 26%. So we're
Okay.
smaller district. We only have 5,000, a little over 5,000 students. They have over 7,000. And we have almost the same percentage of students participating in AP programs, which is pretty cool.
That is great.
Other questions?
What has been your resistance with AP?
How do you mean, resistance?
I don't know, from the community. Have you gotten resistance, I should say, as far as the push that we've made of AP since you and Bill, like you said, in 2008 until current date now? Have you had resistance, Corey?
You know what, I would say it's come in 2 different ways. Initially, when we started making the push, the resistance was, you're dumbing down the AP program, which was not our intent and never our message. Again, we're about opening doors, exposing students.
Right.
So some of the resistance was from our high-flying families that felt like non-academic students shouldn't be exposed to that same class. So that's one issue, and I think we've kind of worked through that, and clearly we have the numbers to show, it's not about building the numbers, so let me make that clear out there too, because that's been some of the resistance. Oh, you're only doing this to make yourself look good. No, it's about opening doors for kids. That's always been our message. I think as we've been focusing on that, some of the resistance, and we're still trying to unravel that a little bit, is maybe we've put some added pressure on the kids to feel like they have to take AP everything. And that was never our message either. If I'm really strong in art, but I'm not strong in English or math, why would I want to take AP English or math? But I feel like I have to kind of compete, and that's not what we want to do either. We want to really help students push themselves, but also be realistic and understand they don't have to take AP everything. So I would say that's the other side of resistance we're still working through. It's maybe students' own pressure.
Do you think that there's I don't want to say significant, that might not be the right word, but is there a population out there that needs a little pat on the butt to push themselves towards more AP courses, taking more of the advanced placement testing that we could really tap into and get by using, I don't know what technique, but is there a percentage out there?
I think there
that
is.
are fence sitters, I guess is what I'm saying.
Sure, and I think you could say that not just about AP. I think you could say that about a student that really should be an honor student, or that are just not challenging themselves moving
Right.
out of the regular class.
Right.
So I think it's the relationship that you build with that student.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of times we hear, and it's the struggle we have down at Hillcrest, we hear this a lot from parents. I don't want my children to struggle. And sometimes it's getting over that hurdle. The struggle is where they grow.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Right.
And
the failures.
Yes.
Is where you learn.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's breaking through that mindset that, students, getting a D is great. They're passing, but what are they really learning and achieving?
Right.
They're just kind of coasting, and they don't understand the value of effort, persistence, failure, learning, growing. So it's kind of that cycle too. And so I say that about all students, even kids that are fearful of taking AP. I don't want the stress. I don't want the burden. I don't know if I can handle it.
I think that's out there.
Yeah, for sure.
And
that's why we can kind of get them early on, just try one. Mm-hmm. We have a lot of students that finally take their first AP class as a senior, and a lot of them take AP psychology. And that's great. I hope all of our kids get exposed to at least one.
Yeah.
Because that just, it's so different.
Try to break down that scary AP wall.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly. So one of the things the APs for teaching and learning and I've been talking about, we have this AP boot camp for freshmen, but we're kind of leaving everybody else out. What about the sophomore or the junior that wants to try it? Where's their support? So we're tinkering with kind of expanding our boot camp to engage other newbies that want to try that AP class. So that's one of the things that we're working on. So I see both perspectives. Those that think AP should be left to the cream of the crop. We still struggle with that, even with some of our teachers. And those that fear of, I don't want to stress myself or my kid out about it.
Right.
So.
Okay.
Good.
No, it's a good question.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Anything else about that? All right, let's talk class size. Kind of completely changing gears. So Larry, I believe, this is familiar to you a little bit, right?
Yes.
Mark, this is going to be new.
Okay.
You're welcome. So let me explain what that sheet is. Before we dive into that data, let me put up this, especially Mark, this might help
Okay.
pull things together. So again, we started probably around 2008, 2009, so when I came on board. The class size process and the class size review was very contentious. It was a very heated argument between the administration and the JFA. It was not a fun time of the year. And partly was because we never had a standard process or a standard understanding of what is a good class size. We know you can't pack 50 students into a classroom and expect students to grow.
Right.
But we also have to be physically responsible, and we can't run class sizes of 8 as much as we would love to. We don't have the space because our population continues to grow, and it's not financially responsible.
Right.
So again, where's that? Bill always talks about the sweet spot. Where's that sweet spot in terms of class size? So back in 2008, 2009, we came up with this concept of windows. And what you see here is every single course, this is only one side, every single course in the district that we offer, we literally, the JFA rep went around to every classroom and figured out what's the maximum capacity of every room for this course.
Okay.
And that's what you see here. So for example, drawing and painting 1, the art rooms at Bremen really can truly only hold 30 kids. TP, they're a little bit smaller. That room is smaller, so it's 28. Hillcrest, the room is bigger. They can go to 32. Oak Forest is a little bit smaller. They can go to 26. So this is giving us a gauge of about how many students can reasonably fit into the room without causing major concern. And you're going to see that for every single course. Some of these don't necessarily have windows. Let me get to the second page. A great example is band. And actually, you're going to see here, music and choir courses have no windows. And that was a conversation that we had with the band directors. Take, for example, symphonic band. For a while, we used to split the kids up. But I know all of the band directors said, you know what? I need to have all of my kids together so that we can practice our performance pieces. It's really hard to have half the kids working over here and then 2 hours later a different half of kids. We can never work as an ensemble. So that's why you're going to see there's actually no windows for any of the music classes, because the directors and even the choir directors want to have all of the kids in that course together. Okay? And you can see ebbs and flows with whether it's a lab class or a non-lab class. Lab class meaning biology, family, consumer science. Our kitchens can only hold X number of students. Okay? So we spent an entire year just coming up with these windows that we've all agreed upon. Well, how does that help? So when it comes time for us to do sectioning and figuring out how many teachers do we actually need, we take a look at the course requests. So let's say at Bremen, 28 students signed up for drawing and painting 1. Let me ask you, if you were me, based upon this window, there was 28 requests, how many sections would you run of drawing and painting 1?
1.
To be academically responsible and fiscally responsible.
How many did you say?
28.
1.
Yeah.
Is that?
Yeah.
Yeah, because it's 30 is the max.
Absolutely.
Right.
What if I had 35 kids request drawing and painting 1?
You could do it, but it wouldn't be.
No.
Right.
Probably not a good thing.
All right.
Because if we split it in half, that's 17. And
It's
that's
below the window,
Yeah.
but 35
is above the
is above the window. And
Right.
here's the other thing we take.
And that's an agreed upon number, correct?
The windows are.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Now, we do have some room in terms of, can we go over, like if I had 32 students, would I run 1 class? Maybe. And here's where the conversation comes in, and you're going to see this in December. So we actually meet with the JFA in December and go over issues that we're having with class size, but I wanted to give you kind of a heads up.
Is that meeting we have in
Yeah.
here where everybody shows
Yep.
up? Okay.
Yep. So we have conversations, and there's some give and take with this. So let's say I had 32 students for drawing and painting 1, but I only had 12 students for AP Studio Art. Do you cut AP Studio Art?
You're going to have some mad students if you do.
Mad parents,
Yeah,
right?
maybe.
So this is kind of the understanding we've worked through. I'll run the section of AP Studio Art, and I'll be over the window and drawing and painting 1. So I'm being fiscally responsible, but also recognizing this is really important to students, so I have to run this class.
Right.
Okay. Some other things we take into consideration too. Drawing and painting 1 happens to be a nice elective that we actually cut a little bit looser because it's open to all students. So why would I cut that one a little bit looser? Think about it as school starts. I'm banking on 28 students coming, but I know, especially at Hillcrest, kids don't register by the first day, right? I get late students. So what if I don't have any classes for them?
Right.
A lot of times what we'll do is we'll cut our freshman classes a little bit looser, knowing that we're going to get students we didn't account for. And so there's a lot of classes like that in the elective areas where I won't cut so tightly because I know these are great places to stick students
That's
that need
right.
classes.
Yeah.
Okay? So you kind of understand how
Yep.
that works, and that's going to help you understand this.
Okay.
So what you see in front of you now are basically the class sizes as of July, when did I run this? July 25th. Skip the first page. Go to page 3. So go to the one where it says Bremen. So let me just give you a review. Next one, Mark.
Right.
Next one.
Okay.
Right there. Yep, good there. Okay.
Okay.
So, really quick, you've got all of the departments down the left-hand side, right, starting with fine arts.
Okay.
Next column is the total sections. So for Bremen High School, if I take a look at all the fine arts classes, and that's music and art, we have 12 sections total.
12 classes.
12 classes, correct. Okay? And you'll see you've got 60 for English, 44 for social studies, 52 for math. One thing to note, we have some 2-hour classes in there. I'm only counting them as 1 class. Okay?
Okay.
And special ed is not included in any of these figures, and the reason being is because we're held accountable to state mandated class sizes. It's not negotiable. So we look at them at a separate time. Okay, so this
Okay.
is anything outside of special ed. The next column, see where it says July? And it says number over the window.
Oh,
Okay?
okay.
So in fine arts, I've got one class that's over the window, and that makes up 8% of the sections.
Okay.
Okay? If you follow that row over, see where it says plus window?
Mm-hmm.
That one section is only over by one student. So is that a huge concern for us? No.
Okay.
Continuing on, I've got one section under the window. So that means we're running it with smaller class sizes. And 83%, or 10 of those 12 sections, are running within the window.
Okay.
Okay? So that's how you read that.
Okay.
So as we're taking a look department by department, and we're looking at the pluses and minuses, overall at Bremen High School, 12% of our classes are running under the window. Or excuse me, over the window. Going backwards. 26% are running under the window and 62% are within. Now, if you're from the administration, you want to see the percentage within the window be higher. And if you're the JFA, you want to see the percentage under the window being higher. And again, we try to work to coming up with the sweet spot. The main thing that we look at as a committee and what we look at in December is that plus minus. So that plus over the window. Right now, my only glare, and it's minor,
Science.
I've got one English class at a +3.
+3.
I've got 2 social studies classes at a +3. I've got, you said in science, I've got 9 sections that are a +1 and 3 sections that are a +2. And in PE, I've got one class that's at a +3. I'm not at the point where I'm panicking about it because we're still doing balancing. We're still moving student schedules, so it's too early to say, we've got a problem.
Right.
Okay. So that's Bremen. Because when you flip the page, let's take a look at Tinley. And please let me know if you have a specific question like, hey, Corey, what's this math class that's a +4? I can tell you exactly what class it is. It's actually an Honors Algebra 1 right now.
Okay. Oh, that's examples there.
Yep, we've got some that are perfectly either in or under the window in fine arts and IT. One of the things that's kind of our general rule of thumb, if we're only over by 1 or 2 students, we're in pretty good shape,
Okay.
kind of across the board. Obviously, there are some exceptions. If we're in a lab class, and let's say we have 6 sections of biology and they're all over a +2, we might want to add a section. Because again, when you're getting into safety issues, we want to make sure that our teachers and our students are safe. Overall, though, right now we're sitting at 54% within the window. We're a little heavy on under. We're 30% under, 16% over. But again, they still have some balancing to do. Hillcrest.
Looks about the same. That's technically.
I'm going to see if you catch my one glaring. Sorry.
88.
No, that 32% under. Yeah, I don't like that, but I'm okay with that. That's not my issue.
You got one class with 8 science.
Actually, that's 8 classes that are a +1.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
Yeah, you got to read it the other way.
Good.
You got 13 then, right?
There you go.
In
So
math.
I've got one math class at a +13.
Yeah, very good.
So in total, you got 15, 20, 21 students. So that would be a perfect one to put in that section.
It would if they're all the same class, and they're not. That's where the puzzle comes in.
Okay.
But you're on the right track. That's exactly what I look for. These are actually all individual classes. The plus 13 is honors geometry.
What?
Well, hang on. Here's
Okay.
why. Hillcrest runs a geometry program in the summer to try to get those students to go into Algebra 2.
Okay.
So we overload the honors geometry class knowing that almost half of them are going to be going into Algebra 2. So they haven't moved the kids yet.
Okay.
But that's why it's still sitting at a plus 13.
Okay.
Okay? Whereas if I tell you the honors Algebra 2 classes, we have 2 sections and they're running well under the window. They're at 17 and 14 because we know we're going to move some of those kids in there.
Okay.
Okay? But I'm glad you caught it because that's the type of stuff that I look for. Otherwise, they're looking pretty good. And Oak Forest. Tell me if you see anything glaring there. Math? No, because we've got 8 sections of plus 1.
Yeah. English. Corey, where is it?
Nowhere. I don't really have
No.
everything right now.
Right.
Looks good. No concerns.
Great.
So if you go back to the very front of the page, this is kind of how I watch and see how our process goes. You're looking at our percentage for the last 3 years over the window. So in July, we're sitting, 3 years ago, we were 20% over. This year, we're 12% over at Bremen. And you can see that, across the board for each of our schools. We're kind of where we always are over the window in July. Same thing with under the window. We're right about where we are every single year. The goal is hopefully by September, so once the 10-day drop happens and we remove the students that aren't here, we relook at class size and see, we want to see the number within go up and the number over and under to go down. So I'll add to this data each time. I'm going to pull it again in about another week, right before school starts, and then I'll pull it after the 10-day drop.
Okay.
When we meet with the JFA in December, what we actually go over is, were there any issues from the first semester? Let's talk about any problems, and right now I don't foresee anything. But we also then get a jump start on second semester. And actually, I forgot, we moved that meeting to November. Because if we have classes in the second semester that are over, we want to take those to the December board meeting, get them in place before school starts in January. Okay. So at this point, the only concern that I have, and it's not reflected in this data because it's in the special ed side, is I'm requesting a section of Excel. So Excel, remember, is our life functionals class. The students are working on the certificate of attendance and their life skills. All the students that come over to Bremen, we're up to 40 students in our Excel program. And so what we do is some of the students will stay in the classroom for classes. We send some students out for PE, some students take art, family, consumer science. Long story short, we need one more period, one more teacher to help reduce the class size because we can't have 40 kids in the apartment.
Right.
So I'm asking you guys if we can go ahead and put in that section of Excel.
Sure.
And then we'll take that to the board next week. And the other thing I'd like to do is ask for 4 unnamed sections in the event we have kids show up that we're not expecting.
Yeah.
So
We do that every year.
We do, yes. So I'll bring that forward as well.
Okay.
Okay? And I think that's all of my agenda items. Yeah.
Good. Are you going to go over this stuff in the meeting, this coming meeting? The academic stuff and all that?
I am not actually. I'm going to post that to the website.
Okay.
I'll send a copy of the presentation out to the board members. As I mentioned, a lot of that is in the board review meeting that Bill has with you guys.
Right.
Bill and I kind of talked about it, and we felt that rather than doing a large committee of the whole again, is to bring it to teaching and learning.
Okay.
Instead, so.
Now I will have to read some stuff, right?
You will. You have to read the committee notes,
Okay.
which I'll have to type up tomorrow. Do you want those ahead of time?
Sure.
Okay.
I want to make sure I'll be able to read every
Okay.
word.
You'll be
I hate
fine.
that reading.
You'll be
But
fine.
it won't be no hurry. If you
Okay.
wanna,
Yeah, otherwise it goes in the board packet. You'll have it over the weekend.
Sure. Then that'll be fine.
Okay.
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 Ready to adjourn? You call it.
The meeting has adjourned at 7:40.